All right, everybody, welcome back. As promised, from the Sunshine State, former Florida Speaker of the House, current Florida Gubernatorial candidate, served in the U.S. Navy and an attorney. Quite a resume. Welcome to the show, Paul Renner. Hello, Paul.
Great to be with you.
Appreciate you coming on. I got so many questions for you. Let me start because I know we got hooked up through the MMTLP situation, so I know those people are listening very intently as to what you have to say. Did you learn about this situation, and what is your take on it?
Well, I have learned about it recently from people who are actively trying to defend these victims. And, you know, it just reminds me that our society, our nation is increasingly distrustful of elites in our institutions. And they're distrustful for a reason, because the elites never seem to be held accountable. They always come out okay. And it's the little guy, the people who are playing by the rules, that get hurt in the end. You know, I'm reminded, I think it was the movie The Big Short, but it was a movie about, you know, a guy that thinks, okay, these guys that are going to make a killing in the subprime market before the 2008 crash, they made a wrong bet. They're going to pay the price. He makes this, you know, decision to short that, but they never paid the price. They did just fine, and it was real people who lost their homes in the mortgage crisis. And so this is like a replay of that, where people on the inside got out, were able to save their money, and the people that were normal people like you and me got screwed.
You think you can have any sway in this argument? Because what I've been noticing, I've been following this MMTLP story for quite some time, and a lot of people have been involved in it. You know, there was a letter sent to Congress, or sent to the SEC, FINRA. I think 100 or 60, whatever it was, House reps signed it, and we thought we were moving forward. We thought there was going to be some action. But every time we think something good's going to happen, it kind of gets pushed back. It's been 3.5 years now. Is there anything that these people can do other than ask their elected representatives in D.C. to get things done? What else can they do to get their money back?
Well, where I'm concerned, it's about a megaphone, and so the governor of Florida has a large megaphone, and I will use it when I'm governor. I can tell you that, and that means having, you know, direct access to the Trump administration, having direct access to make a call and have somebody pick up on the other end and say, why hasn't this been done? You know, I hear about an investigation that's been going on for 3 years for something that could easily be pulled overnight. The data is there to fully disclose in transparency, like the Epstein files. You know, it's there. Let us see it. Let us know what's true, and don't hide and bottle up an investigation that's not really an investigation. It's just to bury it until it goes out of the news and nobody will talk about it. I will continue to talk about anything where justice has not been done, and so we need to know what's the truth, who made out okay, we know who didn't make out okay, and what exactly happened, and what's the accountability for those that knew what was happening and took care of people in elite positions or insiders, and what congressmen and women have turned the other way because they're getting funded by, you know, K Street and funded by some of these people that once again are too big or too important to fail, so to speak, and made out just fine, while everyday Americans had their life savings taken away from them.
I see it the exact same way. And I like that you said that you can use the bully pulpit as the governor of Florida, because you get a big microphone when you run a big state like Florida. Got a couple questions for you just about Florida. I go back and forth. I was born and raised in Missouri. My wife was from Missouri. She moved to Florida. We met up later on in life. So I go back and forth between Florida and Missouri. I do the show out of Missouri, but right now I'm sitting in the northern suburbs of Orlando, Florida. So I am very interested in Florida politics. I know that Governor DeSantis says he wants to get rid of property taxes. Do you think this is viable? Do you think this will happen? Do you think the people of Florida who don't pay income taxes, see, Missouri pays income taxes, personal property taxes. We have to get our cars tagged every year, which costs us, anywhere from $50 to $150, depending. And it just feels like it's a Republican state that's getting taxed to death. I actually moved to Florida to escape the taxes when I went through my divorce. If we get rid of property taxes, I don't know that I can convince my wife to move back to Missouri. So what do you think? Are we going to be able to get rid of property taxes in the state of Florida?
Yeah, well, the governor's talked about homestead property taxes for people who have a primary residence in Florida, obviously, and I want to go as aggressively as we can go. The governor has not rolled out his plan yet, and more importantly, he can't put anything on the ballot. So as we speak, the governor has rightly been talking about this for a year and a half, and I support the effort to bring down property taxes, but this House and Senate have yet to put anything on the ballot. So as we speak today, there's not a single plan that you can vote on in November to save you $1 on property taxes. For that reason, and knowing, what's that?
I said, that's just crazy to me because there's been so much talk about it. And that's the way I understood it as well, that it sounds good, but it's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, and I was Speaker of the House. I termed out the night Trump got elected, so we have term limits. So that's the day I stopped being in the House and stopped being Speaker of the House and leading that House chamber. But I can tell you, if I were there, and what I've called for is one thing that can be done through the legislature only. It doesn't have to go to the ballot. It has to get 60%, to get there permanently in the Constitution. We need to do that, but in the interim, in case they don't get to a vote this fall in a special session to put it on the ballot, and we don't get to the 60% of the vote this November, well, people are going to be stuck with more and more tax increases. They've gone up in 25, they've gone up in 26, they're going to go up in 27. We'd have to wait until 2028 to get something on the ballot. So as governor, I'd be taking office in January of 27. I'm pledged on my voterenner.com to go after this issue to get rid of homestead if we can. And if we can't get that through the legislature or through the voters at 60%, let's make sure we're taking care of people on fixed income, long-term residents. You've been in your home for 30 years. You should own your home and not have to, pay property taxes and then take your home if you don't pay. If you lose your job, you're on fixed income, you can't pay it, you can literally lose your home. And so I don't like that aspect of property taxes at all. It's not something we would do if we were starting over. There are other ways to get some of those revenues you need for police and fire. I don't think you need to replace all of it, but there's ways to do it. I'm committed to finding that rewards long-term residents. I don't want like a Mark Zuckerberg who's moving in $150 million house. Should he pay no taxes on day one? I don't think so. We want to reward that person who's been here for 30 years on a fixed income. They're lifelong Floridians, and make sure they get the biggest bang for the buck on property taxes and get them off those rolls as soon as possible. That's where my priority would be if I'm crafting my own plan. But we'll see what the governor rolls out here soon. Obviously, the House and Senate have to vote on it together, same plan to put it on the ballot, and let's see what happens. But I'm all in favor of property tax reform.
This is Paul Renner, former Florida State Speaker of the House and current gubernatorial candidate for the state of Florida. Another big issue down in Florida is the property insurance. It hit us relatively hard, and we're in the middle of the state. Are there any plans? Is there anything the government can do to bring down the cost of property insurance, or is this just the free market? And because of the hurricanes and just a lot of destruction on the coastline of Florida, is it just something we're going to have to deal with?
Well, the issue that led to a 30% increase in automobile rates, for example, before I became Speaker, we reformed the litigation abuse in our system. Heads I win, tails you lose. Every other billboard's a plaintiff's attorney, and just making it fair for both sides. Fair to it's all about consumers and making sure that we don't have insurers taking advantage. We don't have plaintiffs' lawyers, getting rich and charging all of us, the bill. Is what happens in insurance. It's a pool, and so we went after that issue, and so we've ended the double-digit increases year over year in property insurance. So we have more insurers coming in. You have people that are now filing rate decreases or holding rates even. That was unheard of just a few years ago before those reforms. Now, are we there yet? Am I declaring victory? No way am I declaring victory. I still got a rate increase. My premium still went up this year. So there's more we can do on home hardening, more regulatory reform, maybe more litigation reform to bring those rates down even further. But on auto, we see them coming down in only one state in America. That's in Florida. State Farm's down as much as 20% since our reforms, and they're actually sending checks out to some of their customers. Others are down, less, but they're all pretty much down, between 8% and 15% kind of range. And so if you're not seeing a decrease, you ought to shop that auto rate for sure, because they are coming down as a result of our reforms. So you want somebody that can take this on and make even further progress by going to somebody, the only somebody in this race, who's done something about it and knows what levers need to be pulled.
You know what's interesting? I moved to Florida in 2020. I was unaware of Florida politics. I brought your name up because I was going to interview you to some people in my neighborhood. They know who you are. They know your name from being Speaker of the House. And in Missouri, we don't get a lot of love for our politicians. And I'm pretty critical of the Republican Party in the state of Missouri. But the people that I were talking to yesterday, not only did they know you, they had good things to say about you, which I thought was very interesting. We just don't really have a lot of kumbaya in the state of Missouri. One of the reasons is the way they pick the Speaker of the House in the state of Missouri. For example, The new Speaker of the House is chosen before that Speaker of the House has even won their election. Is it the same way in the state of Florida? Were you chosen as Speaker of the House before you even won your next election?
It used to be that way, and it's funny you asked that. I'm the first one under the new rules where you have to serve together for a period of time before you can vote. So, and in my thing, I was totally supportive of that, is how can you decide who your leader should be until you see who can lead? And I think the biggest difference here, Rob, among me and the other candidates is I have a lifetime of leadership under pressure. I was 20 years in the military, served in 2 wars, Desert Storm in Afghanistan, leading men and women in a wartime environment. I was a prosecutor and was chosen as a leader there, as a supervisor, and I handled violent habitual offenders. A lot of leadership under pressure, proven results, a no-nonsense, less talk, more action kind of guy. Our Governor DeSantis, said that my 2 years leading in the legislature were the 2 most conservative, consequential legislative terms of any state in history anywhere. And that's a pretty nice compliment. We did all the big conservative wins you can think of in those 2 60-day sessions. And so if you love this free state of Florida, I'm one of the architects with Governor DeSantis to build it. If you like those 2 years with me as Speaker, you'll love 8 years with me as Governor. Logically, on paper, when you look at it objectively on those criteria, I'm the logical person to lean in and take over for Ron DeSantis. You look at our amendments of 3 and 4, the pot and abortion amendments, where we have out-of-state billionaires trying to jam their agenda into our Constitution.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
the only one that showed up to that fight.
Amen. The music's playing. I believe you run a little bit long. We're running past the commercial time. That is Paul Renner. Paul, I appreciate you taking the time. I'll be in contact with you. Root for you, my friend. We'll be in touch.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. All right, everybody. That is Paul Renner running for governor here in the state of Florida. And I hear good things about him in this state. So keep an eye on what he's got to say. Don't go anywhere. I apologize to Dan and everybody for running a little long.